This is it, the final module of the course. Thanks for sticking with me all the way through. I hope you've enjoyed this video series and found it useful to get you started doing game design. Usually when I teach classes, I reserve the final lecture to answer the question of what comes next. In this case, that means, okay, you know a little bit about game design, and you know the best way to improve your skills is to practice by making lots of games. That's fine. You could stop there. You could just make games for fun every now and then as a hobby, even for the rest of your life. That's perfectly fine. At that point, we're done. You don't need me or anyone else to give you permission. Just go ahead, create cool stuff for fun, even if you just share it with yourself and your parents and friends. But if you decide maybe you'd like to be more serious and do this as a career, well, what do you do then? So that's what I'm going to talk about in this last video. What careers in game design look like, what the benefits and drawbacks are of making this your career, and what do you do to prepare for it. So first, let's talk about what a design career looks like. There's two components to a job role at a company: your level of experience and your specialization. Unfortunately, terminology varies greatly between companies and also between different countries, so the words that we use may be a bit different depending on where you go. So my advice is always, if you're seeking work, look at the job posting and its requirements first to figure out if this is really what you think it is. So starting off, the first job and lowest level of experience is sometimes called junior designer or entry-level designer, or sometimes associate designer, which sounds really fancy, like you're a business associate, but actually just is a nice way of saying early career. At this stage, there usually isn't much in the way of specialized roles because you don't have enough experience to really specialize. You might do a little of everything here, or just gravitate toward the things you're naturally good at. You'll probably be given constrained tasks like working on the design of part of a system with careful review from more senior designers to make sure you're doing things properly. And then after usually a year or two or a project or two, you'll be ready for your first promotion. Now, the first promotion actually shortens your job title because you just drop the junior or associate or entry level from your title, and now you're just a designer. At this point, you have some experience. You might be given larger tasks like designing an entire system from the ground up. Since game designer can also be a general term to refer to all experience levels, informally this is also sometimes called a mid-level or mid-designer. And this is where designers start to really specialize, so some of these positions might have additional descriptors in front of them. Now, there are actually lots of different kinds of subspecialties of the field of design, and some of these are newer roles. And by the time you listen to this video, there might even be entirely new ones that didn't exist back when I recorded this. But these are some of the major categories that we have now, and probably will have for quite some time. We've already talked about the first four in this course. System designers design the systems and mechanics of the game, the player system and player-player interactions, and later in development shift towards content design. Level designers make the physical and virtual spaces that players walk through. UI/UX designers are concerned with communication between the player and the game, the controls, the game feel, and what information is displayed on the screen, where and how. And narrative designers and story writers deal with narrative, world building, backstory, dialogue, and other spoken and written text in the game. Now, sometimes narrative designer and story writer are used interchangeably. Other times, the narrative designers are concerned with story structure and systems, like this is a branching story, or parallel paths are threaded, or what the mechanics for traversing a dialogue tree are, while story writers are the ones that actually provide the actual written content. And often a single person does both of these, so the distinction doesn't matter. So this does depend on the company. Technical designer, I've also mentioned before. It's more of a hybrid role that I think of as mostly game design with a little bit of programming on the side, kind of the design equivalent of gameplay programmer. Gameplay programmers are mostly programmer with a little game design. Technical designers are mostly game design with a little programming. Technical designers often do some systems design or level design, but also do quite a bit of scripting, so they can help relieve some programming burden by taking on design-heavy coding tasks, particularly things that are very close to design, where you really want someone who understands design really well writing the code. Sometimes, especially at big companies on very large teams, there are designers that specialize in a very specific type of design. Combat designers that focus entirely on making interesting combat situations, dealing with enemy types, their capabilities and stats, enemy placement, stuff like that. Camera designer is a rare but important role that's concerned with camera placement and behavior. If you've ever played a game that had a really janky camera that made it hard to see what's going on when you were in the wrong position, you know how critical this is, and also how hard it is to get a camera feeling really good. Some companies have AI designers who are concerned specifically with enemy behaviors and exactly how enemies react to the player in a way that makes them entertaining and not just frustrating to go up against. And lastly, sometimes there are roles that are just called game designer, which implies a kind of jack of all trades who usually does have some stronger and weaker areas, but is generally comfortable doing a little bit of everything. Sometimes game designer roles without an additional descriptor just means you're still kind of undecided, or that the company doesn't have any more specific job titles yet. After another 2 to 4 years or so, or another few projects, usually is your second promotion to senior designer. Basically whatever job title you had before, except with senior added on to the beginning. Now here you're given even greater responsibility and even less oversight. You might be given several related systems to design, for example, with no one really checking on it other than the lead designer checking in on playtests. So now you'll notice so far the career path has been pretty linear. There is a choice point a little ways in where you can choose to be more of a specialist or more of a generalist. Each of those have their own perks, but the path is more or less the same. Senior is when you start looking ahead to one important branch point. So beyond senior, the key question you need to be thinking about is whether you just want to do more design work, hone your craft, go into your little cave and just do design, and more design, or whether you want to go more meta and start designing the spaces that other designers are going to inhabit in order for them to do their best work. Just like choosing specialist or generalist route, there isn't a right or wrong answer here. It just comes down to your personal preferences. Some designers just want to go and be very good at what they do in design, and that is fine. You can stay just a designer doing pure design work at a very high level of expertise. There is a path for that. But there is another path that opens at this point, moving more in the direction of leading other designers. A lead designer is part designer, but also kind of part producer. They may do the rough design sketches of the game's major systems, and if they have time, they may dive in and do some actual in-the-trenches design work, but a lead position is usually more like 10 to 20% actual design work and 80 to 90% other stuff, like meeting with the programming and art leads and production to communicate design needs across the team, assigning tasks to other designers and reviewing their work, mentoring and growing your design team, and removing obstacles so the other designers on your team can get their work done as effectively as possible. You are responsible for keeping the vision of the game project, but you'll also have a lot of meetings and will spend most of your time dealing with people rather than the project itself. And if you go down the lead path, there is potentially another split later on. Design managers are literally the ones who manage a design department. So they deal with things like hiring and firing and promotion of designers, and how to divide up things like bonuses and raises, conducting employment evaluations, and as well as the care and feeding of the department to make sure that it's running well. That might include setting up training programs, internal events like game jams to help people work on their skills, managing a game library for research purposes, or anything else that involves just designers across all projects within a company. And at this point, as a design manager, you're not even doing game design much. If at all, then rarely. Mostly you're concerned with designing your design department rather than designing actual games. The other path, leadership path, is called creative director. Creative directors are more involved in the design of games themselves, but from a company-wide level. So if you've got a large company that has, say, 4 different project teams going on at once, the creative director is the one thinking about the nature of these projects, how they relate to each other, what are their timelines, and what kind of project teams should shift to once they launch. They may hop into an individual project to provide some high-level design work when they can, but mostly they're looking at a macro strategic level and may be given design direction to the team leads to make sure that the projects are aligned with corporate goals and with the market in order to have the greatest chance for success. Now you might wonder, why am I even telling you this? When if you're listening to this, you're probably not even working in the game industry yet, and you might be 20 years or more away from the highest level you'll reach in your career. But the thing is, if you know the long-term map, it does let you plan things out much easier. Like, suppose that you know for sure you want to be a creative director someday. That's a long path, but maybe you know that right now that that's where you want to be. Okay, so you can just use a search engine to go look for jobs online that are available right now at game companies. Just search for creative director game job, or whatever you're interested in, and you will find plenty. Now, you won't be able to apply to these, of course, not yet, but you can read the job descriptions of half a dozen jobs and look for the common things they all say they're looking for. Okay, so that is your quest list. Maybe one of the things you see over and over is a requirement that you have at least several release titles in the position of lead. Okay, so now you know that if you want to reach creative director, you're going to need that. So now you can work your way backwards, look for lead design jobs and what kind of experience those are looking for, and so on, working your way backwards. And at the end of this exercise, you'll have a very long list of things you need to do to advance in your career, but in every position, you'll know exactly what kinds of things you do need to do in order to advance, and you can make sure to work on whatever skills you think you'll need as part of your work, and also on the side outside of work if you feel like your day job isn't giving you enough opportunities to grow your skills. Now, with all that said, I should be very clear that finding game design jobs at all is not trivial. Entry-level design jobs are pretty rare, mainly because design is a very dangerous role. If a junior artist screws up, a senior artist can just fix their art, no big deal. If a junior programmer writes buggy code, a senior programmer can find and fix the bug or rewrite the code. Again, not a problem. But designers are directing other departments like art and programming, so a design mistake doesn't just mean another designer has to fix your stuff, but it also means a programmer or artist or a game audio person is now going to have to redo their work too. Game design errors bleed across departments, which means they are a lot more expensive to fix. Design is a very trusted position because of this, which is why even so-called junior design positions are often filled with people who already have industry experience and other non-design roles first. I like to quote another designer, Dan Cook here, who said that entry-level game designer is like entry-level vice president. Yeah, you have to get your first experience somehow, but it's hard to break in this way. Now, this isn't to say that entry-level game design jobs don't exist. They absolutely do, and I have definitely seen students get hired as junior designers fresh out of school, but this is rare. So I just like to say that if game design is the career you want, you should absolutely try, you should search, you should apply for jobs that you're qualified for when you get to that point, but you should also have a backup career in mind just in case. The most common entry points into the game industry are visual art and programming, so whichever of those two paths resonates with you more, are you more of an artistic person or a technical person, build some skills in that as well. A third common entry point is QA. That typically does not require any special skills, but it's also much harder to build a longer-term career in. It's far more unstable, has lower pay and lower job security than just about any other game-related discipline, so I don't tend to recommend QA to people, except as a last resort, or in the extremely rare case where someone is actually really passionate about QA. Now, the second thing I wish I didn't have to spend time mentioning is that games are a glamour industry, and a lot of people are out there trying to get in, which means there are definitely people out there that run employment scams, where if you are already looking for a job in games, and especially if you have a profile on a job-seeking or career site like LinkedIn, or you have a portfolio on a portfolio site, you might get contacted by someone who's a scammer. So how do you tell if someone is reaching out to you with a real job or if they're just going to eventually be asking you for money or asking you for information and then stealing your identity or running some kind of check cashing scam where they send you a check that doesn't clear and then you have to send something back or something like that? How do you know if you're dealing with a legit job offer or a actual scam? So I will offer a few red flags. One is if they reached out to you with a job offer or even just an invitation to apply out of the blue, that's a red flag. Game companies that have an open job position are usually flooded with applicants. So there is no one working at a company whose job is to go to LinkedIn and try to reach out to people, certainly not for an entry-level hire. Sometimes you will see this with higher level, more experienced hires just because there's not as many people with tons of experience. But for entry levels, there's tons. All a game company needs to do is drop a job posting and let people come to them. So if a company rep is reaching out to you personally and inviting you to apply to an entry-level position, that's a sign that they may not be being honest. The second red flag is if a person reaching out to you is not from the company they say they are. If they're just sending a private message on a site like LinkedIn, this can be hard to tell because they might set up a fake profile that makes it look like they're coming from that. But if they're sending you an email, you can at least check to see if their email address matches the company they claim they're from. Like if someone says that they're trying to hire you and they're from Electronic Arts, but they're writing from a Yahoo or Gmail address and not an EA.com address, that's very likely a scammer and not a real offer. And lastly, most companies will have a lengthy interview process where they will at least do some kind of skills or technical interview where they'll really be probing to see if you have the skills that you say you do. There might be a challenging design test, There might be a real-time interview where they ask you questions about how you would approach some design problems, but they'll be asking for some kind of evidence to show that you can actually do the job. If you have an interview that feels like they're more interested in talking than listening, they don't actually ask you anything to check your skills, and basically it feels like they're selling the company and the position to you without doing any kind of due diligence to see if they'd want you on their team, that means it's pretty likely this is a scam, because actual companies want to make sure they're hiring the right people. If you are in doubt, most companies do have a general email inbox that you can find on their website, sometimes several. If given a choice, find the one for HR or human resources, but really any general inquiry email address will do. Let them know that you were contacted by this person, how they were contacted. If you were contacted by email, you can forward the email to them or just copy and paste. If you were contacted by private message on social media, include a link to that person's profile, and ask the company if that person works there. Did they legitimately contact you with a job offer? Companies generally want to know if someone is impersonating them because they don't want scammers to be impersonating them. It makes their legitimate recruitment efforts harder. So they'll probably thank you for alerting them, and asking them to confirm is not an inconvenience at all. They're more than happy to do this work of checking to see if this person actually exists, and if so, if they did in fact reach out to you. So this is not inconvenient to them. Don't be afraid to reach out and confirm. And it also offers you a way to say, well, okay, it sounds like this person was a scammer, but hey, as long as I'm writing you anyway, I am in fact interested in a job with you. If you do have a position open, you can start that conversation just in case. And if the company was legitimately contacting you and it's not a scam, they will understand if you're suspicious, and they will happily confirm that, yes, they are very much interested in hiring you. Anyway, just be aware this is a thing, and be careful out there. This module is in multiple parts. Thanks for watching this part, and I'll see you in the next part, where we'll learn more about this topic in this module.